to have you all with us. Got a special guest hanging out with me today as Sam Yarnell has the day off. I will introduce you to that person coming up in about 10 minutes. You've seen him before on the show. Kurt Helin is here because if it's a Wednesday, we're talking about the NBA. Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com is where you could find his work. Did anybody see what happened with Giannis Antetokounmpo last night? If you didn't, we have it coming up. Just insanity. We'll get to that coming up a little later on in the show. Ranking the 9 NFL vacancies as far as head coaching spots are concerned. That's coming up a little later on. But we start things out today with the big story. And the big story today is Mike Tomlin being let go. Sorry, let me get that back. Walking away, parting ways. With the Pittsburgh Steelers. I can't get the idea, and I keep saying let go, because I'm convinced that as much as people are saying this was Mike Tomlin's decision, he did this on his own, nobody knew, I'm convinced if he didn't leave on his own, there was going to be a conversation here. After 19 seasons and 8 straight playoff losses for the Steelers, there was going to be a conversation that could have led to his demise from the Steelers. And maybe I'm wrong about that. It's just my feeling. But Mike Tomlin decided to walk away from the Steelers yesterday after 19 seasons. And I think he's doing the team a favor. Because as I said yesterday on this very show, there needed to be a reset here. There needs to be a teardown here. There needs to be a new way of thinking about how to win football games here and what that entails. And that doesn't mean cycling through coaches every 2 or 3 years like a lot of teams do. That's not what I'm saying. And I know that this franchise has been the model of stability for the last 50 years. And think about that for a second. From Chuck Noll to Bill Cowher to Mike Tomlin. That's it. 3 head coaches. So it's wonderful what they've been able to do. Now, I'm not saying they should now go through this period where they go through coaches every 2 or 3 years, like feels like a lot of NFL teams that are failing do. But there's going to be a period here of some instability. And by the way, fans in Pittsburgh, the same ones that sat there at Acrisure Stadium and booed and wanted Mike Tomlin fired, I don't want to hear anything out of you. Hello to our friends watching on Sportsnet Pittsburgh, by the way. I don't want to hear a word out of you. Because the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And I know Mike Tomlin wasn't winning Super Bowls here over the last decade. But at the same time, you were relevant. You were in the mix every year. You were in the playoffs, it felt like, every year. But I don't want to hear a peep from Steeler fans now. And again, this is coming from somebody who believes it was time for this organization to move on from Mike Tomlin. It was time for Mike Tomlin to move on from this organization. I look at it like a marriage. If you stare at each other long enough and say, one of us should walk away, but we're not, you wind up being 75 and spending your golden years in a miserable marriage. And Mike Tomlin had the opportunity, both the Steelers and Mike Tomlin now have an opportunity to have a second chapter in their lives, in their careers. Mike Tomlin will undoubtedly coach again in the NFL. He'll take 2026 off, it sounds like. Maybe do some broadcasting. He'll do what Sean Payton did. Take a year or 2 off, then come back to the job that's right for him. There's got to be a level of burnout after 19 years. But it sounds like Mike Tomlin isn't going to coach in 2026. Maybe somebody throws the bag at him. Maybe somebody makes an offer that's appealing enough and he decides to go coach, but it doesn't sound like Mike Tomlin's going to coach in 2026. But I found it interesting, and I did a SportsWrap short on this yesterday. And if you haven't already subscribed, SportsWrap Shorts is a great way to get your stories every day. We cover the top stories in sports, the top games every night there. It's on our YouTube channel, SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, also on our TikTok, SportsWrap Jason Page, and on our Instagram, SportsWrap Jason Page. Great way to consume stories quickly if you're not one for watching an entire show. And I asked the question in SportsWrap Shorts yesterday about Mike Tomlin versus John Harbaugh versus Mike McCarthy. They've all won one Super Bowl. And I feel like McCarthy gets short shrift and gets shortchanged on what he's accomplished in his career. And he had a lengthy stint in one place in Green Bay before going to the dysfunction that is the Dallas Cowboys. And when you look at all three of these head coaches that have won Super Bowls that are available in this free agent coaching pool, although it sounds like it won't be Tomlin coaching next year, I think McCarthy's just not getting enough love. Offensive mastermind. Even Aaron Rodgers. And I've shared this story before. I once sat at a outdoor restaurant with somebody who knew Aaron Rodgers really well. And Aaron Rodgers texted this person as I was sitting there. And literally the text said, Mike McCarthy's the dumbest person I've ever met. And it was from Aaron Rodgers to this person. And the person showed me the text from Aaron Rodgers. And years later now, you hear Aaron Rodgers talk about Mike McCarthy. Doesn't feel the same way that he did back when he sent that text to this person that I knew. But I feel like McCarthy's getting short shrift here. You know, John Harbaugh's played with a multiple-time winning MVP and has no Super Bowls to show for playing with that player. Yes, he won one with Joe Flacco, but he didn't win one with Lamar Jackson, arguably the best player. Over that period of time that he was a head coach. Tomlin, look, he did the most with the least, without question. And teams will still be there for him a year from now or 2 years from now, whenever he decides to come back to coaching. But McCarthy is the guy to me. I'd love to see Mike McCarthy back in the league next year. I hope it's with a team that has a chance to win, because I think you can win another Super Bowl with him. We're talking about the Tomlin firing more. Our special guest hanging out with us on the show is next. Welcome back to this Wednesday edition of the show. Kurt Helin coming up a little later on to talk some NBA. I said we have a special guest hanging out with us for the hour today. It's none other than this guy, Robert Littal, founder of Black Sports Online. Gets to
on a Wednesday, no less,
play in the sandbox. And who knew you were going to walk right into the buzzsaw that is the Mike Tomlin story with the Steelers and the head coach sort of parting ways. I wonder if he didn't leave on his own, would there have been conversations about taking him out?
Oh yeah, just like John Harbaugh. You know, you it's always better to leave before, it's always better to walk out the front door to get thrown. That's what I've always been told. Let me leave on my own accord before I get thrown out. I was thinking about this, Jason, and I think in the era of social media, I don't think we're ever going to have too many of these 18, 19, 20-year-old year coaches anymore. I think you were able to do that before because the way the media works and the way the fans, it was more localized. Everybody wasn't scripted. They've been trying to fire Mike Tomlin for about 5 years now, even though this man it never had a losing record. He never, fell off. But I think in this social media era, I was reading something from Josina Anderson, is that he just felt underappreciated. It was like, something, as Jay-Z said, well, go find another Hove, go find another Mike Tomlin. I'm going to Cabo.
I can tell you, I think you're 100% right in this. I think it's such an astute point about the fact that you're not going to get these 18 and 19-year coaches because everybody's anxious to run them out after, a year or two, because everybody wants that sort of instant success. But at the same time, The guy lost 8 straight playoff games. Yeah. He won 1 Super Bowl. That's great. In 20 years, he won 1 Super Bowl. I mean, I'm just saying here.
I mean, the Sean Payton has only won 1 Super Bowl.
Yes. Yes.
It's hard to win, Super Bowl.
I agree. Not everybody's Andy Reid. Not everybody's
John
Andy Reid.
Harbaugh only won, 1 Super Bowl. Andy Reid had won nothing. With Philadelphia, even though he had some very good teams, and he got Patrick Mahomes. I guarantee you, if Mike Tomlin had Patrick Mahomes, they would have won more than 1 Super Bowl. I think what I think Mike Tomlin's problem was, and I always talk about this. I tell my wife this all the time because I think it's a very interesting philosophical question.
Okay,
is it better to take a not so great team and get them as far as you possibly can, or is it just better that you just take out and kind of start over? And I always use that with LeBron because remember when LeBron was in the East?
Yeah.
And those weren't very good teams. So he got to the finals a lot, but he could never, win.
But people appreciated him more for getting those teams to the finals than they did him actually winning titles when he went and played with other stars.
LeBron's finals record was 4-0 instead of 4-6. How would people perceive him? And with Mike Tomlin, if he had won 1 Super Bowl, or let's say the last 5 years they only made the playoffs 2 times, but they went 2-0 in those playoffs and missed the playoffs 3 times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, I think sometimes the team that he had this year was not great, and some of the teams that he's gotten to the playoffs in the last few years were not great, and maybe that's his issue, not getting a quarterback.
No, it's Omar Khan's issue. This is as much on management. And
exactly.
I think they need to, and this is why I think, and this gets into the broader conversation here that I want to get into, is the future of the Steelers is, and we're gonna rank the jobs coming up in 10 minutes, the 9 coaching vacancies. And everybody's talking about, I'd love to work for the Steelers because they give, coaches, 15 years to win, Super Bowls and all that stuff. I don't think it's that good a job, but we'll get to that coming up in a couple of minutes. To me, I think this is a franchise that's on the verge of a complete teardown because, you've got some older guys on defense. They didn't have a great supporting cast for Aaron Rodgers to begin with. Aaron Rodgers is probably going to say, so long, you fired the guy that I wanted you to keep. I think this thing's on the brink of being completely blown up. And everybody could say 3 coaches in the last 60 years and all of that's wonderful. But the fact remains, there's going to come a period of darkness for the Steelers. And some might argue they've already been in that period of darkness.
Exactly.
Considering,
now you're smelling what the Rob is cooking.
Yes, I think
Mike Tomlin has kept them above water. And now, if they don't make the right hire and they don't get the right quarterback, we've seen this happen before. We saw what happened with, say, the Miami Dolphins after Dan Marino left. They still are trying to figure it out. Even though Jerry Jones had that moment, the moment of success after Tom Landry, how long has it been? It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't take much to fall off the cliff.
Yeah.
And sometimes, the thing I think that the Ravens, and we'll talk about that more, is at least they have a quarterback, and that's what the Steelers don't have. And I don't think Ty Simpson's, which I heard some of the fans bet, I don't think that's going to make the difference right now.
No.
So it's a lot going on with that, and I think Mike Tomlin did the right thing. I think he was at the precipice. I don't think he was going to win a Super Bowl anytime soon, and there was going to be a situation where they were going to fire him at some point, and he was like, something, I'm going to get out early. He pulled a Barry Sanders, and I applaud him for that.
Yeah, you won't have Nixon to kick around anymore.
Not anymore.
That's essentially what's going on here, and I'll be anxious to see, if this leads to a mass exodus beyond Aaron Rodgers. If you start having players come in and say, I just don't want to be here anymore. I'm going to go somewhere else. That's ultimately a possibility here. You've got 3 Super Bowl winners here: Tomlin, Harbaugh, and Mike McCarthy, that are all on the free agent coaching market. Which one would you be calling first?
Oh, I think
McCarthy's getting short shrift here.
I think Mike McCarthy's a good coach. I think it's hard to win in Dallas. But as far as, if you're looking for a guy that knows what he's doing in offensive, and he reminds me a little Andy Reid. And if you put him in the right spot with the right quarterback, I might lean to Mike McCarthy and then Mike Tomlin and then John Harbaugh.
Yeah, everybody's like Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh, and I'm sitting here going, Mike McCarthy's in the car. I'm not an agent for Mike McCarthy. I don't get it. I don't get a percentage if he decides to.
I think it's just they just got fired, so they're like, I don't think. I mean, no offense to John Harbaugh, I think he's a great coach.
Yeah,
I think he would do himself well to take a year off. I think.
Hold that thought. We're going to come back. We're going to rank the 9 coaching vacancies in order from best to worst. You'll want to hear what I have to say about this, and certainly what Robert has to say as well as we continue with Sports Wrap. Don't go anywhere. Kurt Helin coming up in 10 minutes to talk some NBA. Get some thoughts with him on what's going on around the league. What is going on with Giannis Antetokounmpo? If you didn't see this last night.
That was interesting.
Yeah, you read. It was certainly a choice.
It was interesting.
It was certainly a choice. Certainly a choice, as the kids like to say. All right, Robert Littal. The time has come. There are 9 coaching vacancies in the NFL right now. I told you yesterday. I texted Robert. I said we're gonna rank the 9. So I'm dying to know how you rank the 9 coaching vacancies in the NFL. Robert will give his, then I will give mine. I give deference to our guest today who's hanging out with us. So Robert Littal, your 9 coaching vacancies. Rank them. Go.
This is very tough. I'm going to go first off with the Ravens. You have a 2-time MVP. That's really all you need to say. After that, it was very hard. Second, I'm going to go with the Giants. I think they have a lot of talent. I think they have a good young quarterback. I think management is in the right place, so I like the Giants. After that, the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins, for whatever reason, I just feel good that the Dolphins are in a good place. Not a big fan of their owner, but I think they can be turned around really quickly. After that, the Steelers, just for the things that we talked about before, while they may be a little talent deficient, if you get the right coach, at least you know they're going to stick by you through thick and thin for a long period of time. You cannot take that for granted, having some good, solid ownership. After that, I have the Titans. I'm a big fan of Cam Ward. I know their ownership is a little iffy, but I know they're going to be doing some different things now. But I think when you have a good young quarterback, good foundation, Titans is a good spot to go. I think a coordinator would be good, for the Titans. After that, the Cardinals. Back in Arizona, I think they also need a new quarterback as well. But I do think they have a pretty decent, foundation after that. Then the Falcons. The Falcons have just been kind of blah for like ever. Do have some talent there. Got to get that quarterback situation straightened out. Then the Raiders. Tom Brady, my God, please do something. The Raiders have been bad for 20 plus years. It hurts me because those uniforms are so good. And then lastly, the Browns. And I think that's self-explanatory.
That's kind of interesting to me. Your list definitely differs from mine. I know a lot of people like to think that the Baltimore Ravens should be the number 1 in all of this. To me, given what we saw out of Lamar Jackson this past season, his inability to stay on the field and be healthy, his diminished ability running the football is going to become, he's 29, 30 years, he's got some tread on the tires, and he's made a lot of trips to the playoffs and played in some extra games and all of this. I don't necessarily think that that's the number 1 job. I don't think the Ravens are the number 1 job. I'm gonna rank them. I'm gonna rank them the other way. I'm gonna go from worst to best in this. I think Miami's absolutely the worst job. I do not want that. Other than the fact that it's Miami, and you get to live in South Beach. If it's about that, then I'll give them a decent grade. But I can't give Miami anything worse than the last spot. I'll go number 9 for Miami when it comes to the coaching vacancies. Their quarterback situation is in disarray. You got the Tyreek Hill situation that's played out, and who knows, if he even has a role, if he plays another game with this team. I think they are extremely talent deficient in Miami. That is a complete overhaul, and I don't know if you're going to get the time you need to do it. Arizona is another bad situation to me. You know, the Cardinals with the and again, you got to look. I hate to make this a quarterback dependent conversation, but if you don't have any clue what you're doing at quarterback, you know, they started Jacoby Brissett for most of the season. Who knows what Kyler Murray's status with the team is going to be? I'm not crazy about Bidwell as the owner. I'll go Cardinals number 8. Number 6, I'll go Tennessee. Number 7, I'll go Tennessee. Sorry. I'll go Tennessee for number 7. I'm not as high on Cam Ward as you are, but I think, you know, when you watch what happened with Caleb Williams there, what happened with Bryce Young, a lot of people were killing these guys after their first, and in the case of Bryce Young, his second year. Maybe Cam Ward still has that development in him. And as we saw with Drake May this year, all it takes is combining the right coach with the right quarterback, or with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson combining the two, and magical things can happen. Bo Nix and even Sean Payton, you know, in that regard. But I'll go with the Titans at number 7 for now. Number 6, the Cleveland Browns. The situation in Cleveland, obviously, I was talking about this with an editor of mine over at MS Now for a column I wrote about the John Harbaugh situation, and I was saying I wouldn't want that Cleveland job. I wouldn't want to be in that situation again. They don't know what they're doing at quarterback. They had 5 quarterbacks in the room at one point. Oh, they still have Deshaun Watson, by the way, for those that don't remember. And he's still on the roster. The situation in Cleveland is not a good one. I'll put them at number 6. Number 5, I'll go with the Raiders. And I think I'm being generous putting the Raiders at number 5. Given the disarray in that organization. They took a flyer on Pete Carroll. It obviously didn't work out. There are some talented pieces there to work around. But again, the quarterback situation. Do we trust them to get it right with the number 1 pick? I don't. It's the Raiders. Number 4, I'll go with the Giants. There is underrated dysfunction within the New York Giants, as I like to say. And that's hard for me to say as somebody with their helmet sitting right behind me and being a huge fan. You look at Scadaboo, Abdul Carter, that front 4, Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors, and you feel like you should feel better about them than you actually do. But I'll put them at number 4 because they do have some talent and they do have the quarterback position somewhat figured out. Number 3, I'll go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm, again, being generous based on the fact that you're going to get the time you need to build that situation. But as I said in the last segment, that's a complete overhaul in Pittsburgh right now with the Steelers. Given the fact that your quarterback is gone, they have not made good personnel decisions in recent years, which is why they haven't won a playoff game in their last 8 tries. I'll go with the Steelers at number 3. Number 2, I'll go with the Ravens in that spot. I love Lamar Jackson. He's an amazing player. But at the same time, there is tread on those tires. Some guys are getting older, a little longer in the tooth. I'll put them at number 2. And number 1, the Atlanta Falcons for me. I see so much talent on that roster. I just think it needs the right coach to bring it all together. Kirk Cousins will be the starting quarterback next year. Why not? We're coming back with Kurt Helin to talk basketball next. Welcome back to the show. And it ain't a show on Wednesdays if this guy ain't here. The one and only Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com hangs out with us.
I think a show goes on without me. The show must go on, Jason.
As Queen once said, the show must go on. What the hell is Giannis Antetokounmpo thinking? Booing the fans after they boo him in a blowout loss? Like, what on earth is going on in Milwaukee? Like, is this thing numbered down to days after this?
It's a good question because there has been a real vibe that this was going to be an off-season thing. He wasn't going to ask for a trade. They aren't going to. In fact, they continue to try to upgrade around him, as much as they can, which is, But this is still a team well below 500, scrambling to make the play-in. I mean, they're a 500 team or a little better when Giannis is playing, but not much. And that vibe was a little weird. I still don't think it changes that dynamic, but it really starts to set the tone for the move that just feels like it's coming probably this offseason. And I feel bad for Bucks fans because it's the reality of it. This just feels like something that's reached the end of its line. But we'll see. It's possible this picks up the tempo. We're back to something you and I have discussed, and Robert's probably been part of too. Trading a guy making $54 million in the middle of the year, even Giannis, who teams actually want as opposed to Davis or some of the others, it's just hard.
Did it really surprise you? Knowing what you know of him as a player and talking to people around did that surprise you, that sort of outburst?
A little bit. He's very competitive, and that was a thumping last night, right? Like the fans were booing them with good reason. This was not a good outing. This team is struggling. But I think he's really frustrated. He's really frustrated with where this thing is going and realizing, like I said, he could try to push, but the problem is he wants to go to a contender. He wants to, if it's not New York or Miami or wherever, it is hard to pull that deal off mid-season because of how much money he makes, how many players have to move.
Okay.
It's brutal. So I think he's realizing he feels like he's wasting a season, for lack of a better word.
Robert, go ahead.
Is there anyone in the NBA willing to give up more than a bag of Doritos for Ja Morant?
We are talking the family-sized bag of Doritos, right? Like
not Cool Ranch. It's not that bad.
Hey, can I stick up for Cool Ranch for a second? I might be the one guy who actually likes Cool.
You like Cool Ranch? Oh my God!
Now Robert and I can't be friends, and I don't blame you. My kids can't stand it either. They're Takis people, which is a whole different discussion. Not really. Hey, look, everybody's kind of like they're going to get more for him than the salary dump that was Trae Young, because I've had people from front office tell me the potential is there. He's a little younger, but like if you feel like you can get him back on form and focused, there's just a little more there. But it's teams taking a flyer saying, hey, we think we can turn this around. Hey, we think if we put him in this setting, it will be different. And you're not giving up much for teams taking a flyer. You still got to match the salary. But look, maybe they get a late protected first or sort of swap out of it, but it's going to be something more like that. Maybe if they get a young player, which is what they want, it's going to be a distressed asset. It's going to be somebody who's not working out where they are, and they're going to try them in a new location, but they're not getting anything of real value back.
How jarring was the Trae Young deal for people around the league to see that go down the way it did?
There was it's funny in the postmortems of that, it really wasn't that surprising at the time, because by the time they moved him, everybody was ready to move on. And it's the one thing, by the way, that may be true with the Ja Morant. They had that in their back pocket. They went public, but this deal was kind of, hey, we know this is here. We know this. We can get this. Let's see if we can do better. There's people wondering if that's the case with Ja Morant, whether it's Miami or somewhere else. Do they have a deal in their back pocket and they went public looking for a little more, seeing if they can find something else, and ultimately they'll fall back to whatever the fallback is with whatever team? But it wasn't that shocking. There's been a lot of recriminations, though, that they moved too late. That if they had done this a year ago at the deadline, they would have gotten first. They would have gotten stuff back. They waited to the point where they weren't. And that you're still better sometimes moving earlier than later on these things.
I'm going to save the Thunder and Spurs for the next segment. So let me ask you about what we saw in the second game last night. Warriors win, and that's all great. Jonathan Kuminga hasn't played basically for the last 16 games for this team. Are they going to move him? Like, is there a move to be made for them? Because they're basically devaluing him every day he doesn't play.
He will get moved. If he's probably behind Michael Porter Jr., the second most likely player to get moved at the deadline. But Robert, can you get out that bag of Doritos? That's pretty much it's coming back at this point. It's not going to be. There's teams that look at him and think, man, I'll take a flyer on that, and they put him in a very tradable. They forced him into a very tradable contract this summer, so he will get moved. But
is it the contracts that are making this a little harder, these blockbusters now?
It is not with Kuminga, because they put him in that, he's making 22, which is a really easy number, 22 or 24. real easy number to match with a player or two, and it expires. It's a team option next year, so you're not stuck with him if you just want to do this as a salary dump or get off of somebody or whatever. They're not going to get much back, and they know it at this point. They're both sides. What I was told, and I think it's been reported too, both sides are done. Both sides are just let's end this thing, get out of the, sign the divorce papers. This is over. Let's get it over with, and they're ready to go. They're not going to get much back with the guys. If once you get over 40 million, when you get to Trey and Ja and Giannis and so AD, Anthony, those become really hard to pull off in season in an apron world.
It's a pox on all their houses that they couldn't figure out a way to make Jonathan Kuminga work in Golden State with the Warriors. We're coming back more with Kurt Helin. We'll get to the Spurs and Thunder next. Welcome back. 10 minutes from now, it's odds and ends. Not all the LIV golfers are headed back to the PGA Tour. We'll get to that. Our friend Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com is hanging out with us. Hey, if they paid me that much money, I'd stay too.
You and me both, man. I don't even like golf that much, and I'll learn.
So the Thunder finally get a win over the Spurs, which just sounds crazy to say in their fourth try. They were much more physical in this game, and the refs let them play a bit more, and that's gonna help. Did you see the formula in that game that sort of unlocks this for the Thunder when it comes to playing the Spurs? Because I saw a Spurs team that still fought hard. I still think if these two teams play in the postseason, it's probably a 7-game series. And I right now, I'll still take the Spurs. They played terrible last night, but they were still kind of in that game in the third quarter until the Thunder kind of blew them out of the water, outscoring them 40-24 in that quarter.
Yeah, and the 11-0 run in the middle of it, that's when you went up, and this is over.
Yep.
I think that they figured out how they want to play against them. They realized they need to be more physical. They were a little too finesse. Like you said, it made life difficult for Wemby by being physical, more difficult for him by being physical. But I'm with you. That's like I want that playoff series. That's a 6-7 game series, like you said, that really pushes them. I thought that this was good. Look, they play Houston on Thursday. That's another good test. I want to see Oklahoma City respond that way, like a champion. Like, hey, man, we've been coasting through the season. They really did hit the dog days. They also missed a ton of threes for a stretch. They just could not knock down shots. That seems to be coming back around. And they're still, look, man, they're still the bar. They're still the team to beat. And I think that I'm going to borrow a line from Vinny Goodwill from ESPN, who called it the Fitzgerald proportional response for all the West Wing fans out there. They responded and gave them the proportional response and said, all right, remember who we are. Remember, this is we're the team you've got to beat. And they responded to the first part of the test. They passed some adversity. We'll see how they do Thursday, but they're still the Thunder, man. They're still it.
Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, I seen the agent of Austin Reeves confronted Rich Paul.
Yeah.
Are people a little bit upset that Rich is on this podcast? Kind of, basically trying to point out what trades he would make and what moves he would make if he was the GM, even if it involves players that aren't his players. Is that rubbing people the wrong way? Is that even legal for him to do?
It's legal. He's not in the front office, so he can kind of say whatever he wants. But that one comes with layers, doesn't it? Because remember, he's LeBron's agent, and LeBron is up for a contract at the end of this year, and the sense is if he returns to Lakers, it's going to be, or probably any contender, but with the Lakers in particular, it's going to be a serious pay cut, right? He's not making $50 million next year, unless he wants to go play for the Wizards, and I'm guessing that's not the case. So, like, if he's not, if the Lakers need a number 2 next to Luka, and if Reeves were somehow not there, then LeBron gets extra, suddenly LeBron's the guy. So there's this kind of layer to it. Also, Reeves loves the Lakers. Reeves took a discount to stay. He wants to re-sign with the Lakers. So there's a whole ton of tension there. And by the way, just for the record, if I could trade Jaren Jackson Jr. for Austin Reeves as a Laker, I would do it yesterday. Yeah, Jaron Jackson Jr. is so much the guy they need. You got to get Memphis to give him up.
Herb Jones?
Herb Jones, they would really like to get another guy. That
I keep bringing him up for good reason because that team's going to be in dump mode.
Yeah, he is. Look, it's not just him, by the way. There's 29 other teams that really need 3-and-D wings, and Herb Jones would be the best one on the market. They could get a real return for him, but they aren't selling right now in New Orleans, much to the consternation of the league because, well, actually, I don't know why. Because they're the Pelicans.
Tell me why, how this Anthony Davis thing happened yesterday, where we're getting reports they're shutting him down for, months. They're going to do surgery on the hand. Then it's 6 weeks. Then it's, we're looking at possibly still trading him. Then it's, we're not in a rush to trade him. What the hell's going on with this?
Yeah, that's a pretty confused front office. I'm really curious where his original report came. So somebody, probably
this being Shams Charania, you were talking about.
Shams Charania. Someone told Shams, probably someone within the Mavericks that wants him to get the surgery, that this was, look, he's going to see the second guy. They're going to tell him surgery. They're going to get it done. The second hand specialist out in L.A. said, no, you wait 6 weeks. It theoretically makes him easier to trade because you might get him back this year, is the theory. Again, we're back to there's just not a huge market for him right now, not at the price they want to get back. So I'm not sure that trade happens anyway, but this keeps the trade door open. But I will also say I've heard from a couple people some level of skepticism whether he can return this year and whether he might ultimately need some kind of surgery anyway.
Wow. We only got a minute left, Robert. You got anything else for Kurt? Otherwise, I'm just going to sit here and stare at him awkwardly.
Well, speaking of LeBron practicing his golf swing, is there any thoughts out there that this could be his last season? He seems a little distracted more than normal.
Yeah. Yeah, he discussed his pregame routine, which was playing a lot of EA Sports golf, I believe. Last night I was in that locker room, and I'm like, wow, that's all right. There you go. I don't think so. I mean, there is really the consensus is, look, this is LeBron. He's got an ego. He wants the farewell tour, and the only question is whether he's doing that with the Cavaliers or the Knicks or the Lakers or somewhere, I can't imagine. I'm not even sure who the other team in that mix would be, but he wants to go somewhere and do the farewell tour, and I'd be shocked if he doesn't. So I think there are teams watching. He hasn't decided, but there are teams watching.
Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Check him out there. Always appreciate you, my friend. Be well.
Take care.
Odds and ends are next. Welcome back to the show. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Wednesday. But before we do, a couple of reminders. Tomorrow is Thursday. Dennis Bernstein will be joining us to talk about all things hockey. We're now into that part of the year where you could really start focusing more on the NHL and the NBA and college basketball, with the NFL starting to wind down in terms of the number of games we'll have to talk about. Obviously not the number of storylines if you've been watching today's show, but certainly the number of games. So we'll get into some NHL tomorrow with our friend Dennis Bernstein from thefourthperiod.com and SiriusXM NHL Radio. Also, if you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can listen to this show while you're driving to work, on the treadmill, in the shower, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to go and subscribe to that today. We also have the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. This is the place for all things Sports Wrap. The Monday through Friday TV version of the show is available there, commercial-free, Monday through Friday, early each afternoon. A lot of times it's actually there before it even appears on any of our TV affiliates. So if you're really in a rush to hear what we have to say, to see what we have to say, to catch the top stories of the day, head over to our YouTube channel and check that out. Also available there, Sports Wrap Shorts. These are 1 to 3 minute long videos, very easy to digest while you're in the course of your day. If you're on a break from work, you're walking outside, doing whatever it is you do throughout the day. These short Sports Wrap videos are great for catching up on the top stories of the day, the biggest games every night. We've got those covered for you. SportsWrap shorts available on our YouTube channel. Also available on our TikTok, SportsWrap Jason Page, and on our Instagram, you guessed it, SportsWrap Jason Page. And without any further delay on this Wednesday edition of the show, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. Well, one LIV golfer is coming back to the PGA Tour. That is Brooks Koepka. He's coming back through this one-time deal that's being offered up for the next 2 weeks. That's available. Basically, it was available to 4 different LIV golfers. Brooks Koepka, who already had decided he wanted to spend more time with his family, he wanted to be stateside more, decided he was going to part ways with LIV Golf. So he took this deal. The deal was also available for the guys you see on the screen. Cam Smith, John Rahm, and Bryson DeChambeau. Well, the 3 of them all came out on Tuesday and said, we're good where we are, thanks. They're going to stay with LIV Golf through at least the upcoming season. Now, I wonder if this is, a bit of calling the bluff of the PGA Tour because they're under contract still with LIV for another year. And in some cases, maybe even longer. But it's certainly for this year, I wonder if this is them calling the bluff of the PGA Tour and saying, if we want to come back in a year, you're still going to take us. And it'll be interesting to see how the PGA Tour reacts if in a year from now, either LIV Golf isn't there and these guys need a place to go, or they decide to part ways with LIV Golf because it just isn't gaining the traction that they hoped it would, if that option will still be available to them. We'll obviously have to wait and see how that shakes out. So those guys are staying with LIV Golf. Very cool story. The Australian Open is about to kick into gear here. You may never have heard of Jordan Smith, and after today you may forget who Jordan Smith is. But for one night in Melbourne, Jordan Smith was king of the world. He won $1 million in the one-point slam that was held in Melbourne, where they play the Australian Open. He bested the likes of Carlos Alcaraz, Yannick Sinner, Amanda Anisimova, Iga Swiatek, who was in this thing, for a $1 million prize. It was 1 point. It was called the 1 point tournament, and it was literally a tournament where you play 1 point against some of the best in the world. He's an amateur, and the dude won $1 million. I think it's a very cool story. $1 million. And I don't know how other sports capture the magic of something like this, but I'd love to see more things like this, where, you have a combination of pros and elite stars and amateurs who get to compete against each other. Because in a 1 point situation, anything could happen. Yannick Sinner basically double faulted, and that was how Jordan Smith won his 1 point challenge against Yannick Sinner. I think it's a terrific idea. I think more leagues should do it. Congratulations to Jordan Smith, $1 million richer at this Australian Open event, this pre-event to the Australian Open. Very cool. The New York Mets have reportedly offered outfielder Kyle Tucker, the top free agent still available in this free agent pool, a contract believed to be worth $50 million per season. It's a short-term deal, but $50 million per season being offered up by Steve Cohen and the Mets to try and get Kyle Tucker. Whether or not he takes it, we'll have to wait and see. He turned down his qualifying offer from the Cubs, which was worth about $22 million, which made him a free agent. Bo Bichette is still out there right now. A couple of players still out there in the free agent pool. We'll see if Kyle Tucker decides to take the offer from the Mets or not. It's going to do it for us on this Wednesday edition of the show. Thanks to Robert Littal for hanging out with us. Also, Kurt Helin to talk basketball. All of you at home for watching. Sam Yarnell returns tomorrow. I'm Jason Page. Does it for us. We'll see you back here on Thursday. Got it right. For an all-new edition of Sports Wrap. Bye-bye. Hi there. I'm Jason Page. You like what you're watching? Subscribe. We've got Sports Wrap shorts on this channel. We've got the show. We've got clips from the show. What else do you have to do? you probably follow a lot of other things that aren't half of they're not half as exciting as this show is. So what are you waiting for? Click the subscribe button, follow the channel, watch the content. Bye.